No. I want to respond to a video that I just sent out about 4 or 5 hours ago. It was in regards to what seemed to be an accusation. What seemed to be an accusation. So I want to take a few minutes of your time to talk about that. And I guess I live in Seattle. You know, right now it's dark outside. It's about 4:39 p.m. It's raining. Most people have already had their Thanksgiving dinner. Some of them, you know, the homeless community, which I was a part of for 10 years, from 99 to about 2008, we all ate at the Union Gospel Mission together, or sometimes we'd get food at the park, because people would bring food to the park, and churches, and they would pass it out. And so I basically, traditionally, I don't have a family. I'm by myself in the country. I'm from Haiti. My mother's Cuban. My mother is Haitian and my father's Cuban. My parents are still down there. My father passed away in 2004. And my mom is still down there. I haven't talked to her since, I guess, the hit with the earthquake. So I don't know where she's at. I don't know if she's celebrating Thanksgiving or not, or how things are doing on her end. I haven't spoken to her in what seemed ages. I grew up in this country without my mom. I left her back in 1981. I moved here from Haiti, and I moved in to live with a family that I think at the time was good friends with my family, but it didn't turn out that way. The Franklin family turned out to be a surprise. You know, they were the unexpected enemy. And you know what? It was the most disappointing thing for me, because I only lived with them from 1981 to about 1985, and then I was removed. There was physical abuse in the Franklin household. I didn't exactly like it, and so I was removed and put into foster care. Gabriel and Guy Franklin were not parents. I didn't know who they were, and I mean, to this day, I still don't know who they are. I don't know anything about them, and I still don't know anything about them to this day. I mean, here we are in 2011, and I'm 40 years old, and I can tell you right now, it's a nightmare just thinking about the name Franklin. It's a nightmare because of what we've been through from 1985 until now. From 85 until now, the abuse never stopped. It went from physical abuse to sexual abuse. And the physical abuse was with the son, where I was being stripped nude and beaten, to sexual abuse where Franklin, I guess the mother, and I didn't know this was happening for years, where she was coming into the group home and sexually violating me, and she was given the right to do that, or I guess the permission to do that by the community or the government or whoever it was at the time that had authority over me as a teenager. Growing up, I had no idea that the woman was in the background, and that she was doing some of the stuff that she was doing. It's appalling. When I moved to California, I was never aware of the fact that she was in the background. When I lived in California, I had no idea that she was still in my life. I thought she was just a distant person. I left California in 99. And moved up here. I'll come back and tell you about California in a minute. I moved up here in 99, and would you believe it, she finally decided to come out, but the way she came out was not the same way, was more or less, how shall I say, shocking. Shocking, it was a shock. The way she came out, she came out through the community, and basically, I don't know nothing about the community. I knew nothing, and I still don't know anything about the community. I have no idea how the community functions. I never knew that the community had complete control over, they can take complete control over a person's mind and life and situation. The community, they have so many different levels of communication, it's incredible. Some of the things that they do is just inexplicable. And so I don't want to sit here and give you a documentary on the community, because truthfully I don't know the community, but what I do know of the community is horrifying for me. It became a nightmare, and the nightmare became Gabriel Franklin herself. The focal point of my life went from Christianity to Gabriel, And with Gabriel came the gay community, and I call them the unmasked clan. That's what I call them, the unmasked clan. In other words, they never wore the hood for me, but some of the things that they did or said and how they treated me was as if, oh man, I'm really dealing with the Klan. I'm dealing with the Klan spirit. I'm not dealing with people that are just, Americans. In other words, they hate. The Klan hate. And I really don't understand the gay community, and I don't understand that relationship that these two communities have together. If they're one community or they're two separate communities, it's beyond me, because it was never explained to me, and since I'm not an American, I don't really know. But what I do know is that it affected me. It affected my life, and it impacted it. And Gabriel somehow was protected by the community. And Gabriel was basically brought out. I guess she's in her 80s, and so the community lifted up her voice so that I can hear her pretty much everywhere. And she became the rod that they used to do some of the most wicked things that they've done. You know what I'm saying? To do some pretty evil things. And they shouldn't have done it. I don't think it was the right thing to do. I think it was an ungodly thing to do to a Christian man. I don't think the community understands God's position in my life. I think they only understand the American position that's in the country against African men. African men have to be submissive, subordinates. They have to yield to that. They have to give in to that. And as I'm talking, you can probably tell that I'm not from this country, and I don't know a lot about American culture and American background, which is what you're supposed to get from this video. The problem is that the people that are behind some of the things that I'm dealing with, are Americans from the gay community and from the Klan, and they didn't come clean, and nothing that they ever said or did was they don't have a clean slate with me. Everything is behind closed doors. Sometimes I come into my apartment, into my home, and they'd wipe out my computer, they destroy clothes, tear clothes, and on and on and on about stuff that they've done, and I'm unable to explain it. I'm unable to explain it because it's them doing it. Right? It's them doing it. So you understand that where I'm from, that is Haiti, the people that I came to, Gabriel and her family and her son, I came from New York to California to up here. I believe what Gabriel wanted through the community was submission. And she, in exchange, was going to give me same sex. But I think what she wanted was submission. She wanted that, what Americans get from each other, slavery, submission, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't willing to give it. I wasn't willing to cooperate. I wasn't willing to yield my life to that. And here's the other thing, too. I can hear Gabriel in my ear. I can hear Gabriel, and I can feel her spirit. I don't stand with that. I don't stand with what I hear, and I don't accept with what I feel. There's so much to be said about the relationship that I have with this woman. It's a freaky kind of relationship, which I don't understand. She basically she went overboard. I'll get to that, but she went overboard. Some of the things that she's done and said is atrocious. But that's besides the point. So you understand that the Franklins have been in my life since before the 80s, all the way back to the 70s. And I personally have never accepted it. The relationship began with my mother, Marianne, and I think they've always looked down on my mom because of how they met my mother and the relationship that they had with my mother. They always looked down on her, and she was like, I guess, the cut down for them. And because of that, they carried on that same attitude and relationship with me. And so they wanted that same relationship that they had with my mom with me. that same, we look down on you, and you're the subordinate, and you're the one that brings us down, and blah blah blah, that kind of attitude and spirit. They wanted me to take it on, to continue it, like it's a family tradition, that they're up and we're down. I didn't buy into it. I didn't buy into that. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that family members, just because it started with my mother doesn't mean that it has to continue with me. Just because my mother was poor and uneducated and my father wasn't there doesn't mean that it has to continue with me. We live in a country, in the richest country in the world. You know what I mean? We live in the richest country in the world, and people come here from all over the world. People come here from all walks of life, to find to find freedom. That's why Lady Liberty is in New York. It's the Statue of Liberty. It's there to communicate that there's freedom in America, right? There's freedom, and there's justice, and it's even in our Constitution. But I hate to tell you that the community takes away that freedom and takes away that liberty and takes away that justice. I hate to say it, but that's the facts. So from 81 to 85, I lived with Franklin. In 85, I left and went into the Nanuet group home. I was removed for child abuse. Went into the Nanuet group home, lived there for about 5 years or so. The boys, what I wasn't told was that Gabriel was in the background. And the boys didn't exactly treat me very kindly. And I could think of some serious things that they did, and man, I tell you, it's bad, some of the stuff that they did. And I didn't know back then that she had something to do with that. She instigated some of that. Some of those hits were instigated by her. I could name names and point out fingers, but it wouldn't be of any help. I can only think of one person, really. I think his name was Carmen Rivera. Years ago, I lived in the same house with him. But I'll get to that later. Who I really didn't know Carmen. I don't know who he was. I don't know who he was back then, and I still don't know who he is today. But the community used his voice and his face basically to just insult me in Seattle. I mean, and I think the issue was white over black. I think that's one of the biggest issues in this country. That is racism, bigotry, the relationship between Africans and Europeans. It's one of the most heinous, rooted relationship that I have ever seen between two races. I mean, the English race coming out the way they did and taking control over the land and taking control over the Native Americans and their homes, and then bringing the blacks, Africans here to be their servants, to be servant to them. I think it's, that relationship has its time and its place, but in the 21st century, 2011, for the love of God, I don't think it should still be here, but that's what I ran into. So from 85 to 90, I went and lived, I was living in Nanuet in New York, and graduated from high school, transferred over to California to go to college. So from 90 to 96, I went to college in California, and while I was going to college, I was going to Grace Community Church. Supposedly that's where I met John MacArthur. That was the gentleman that I had made mention in the when I made the statement in the other video, and that was, don't offer me sex for my Christian work. I think every Christian would stand with me in that statement if they really have the Spirit of God, and if they really believe in the Lordship of Christ, and if they really believe in the Bible, that is the Scriptures, the Holy Bible, the book that everybody fears, the book that nobody wants to read, the Holy Bible. This is my Bible right here. This is the Bible. This is my Bible. This is the Bible that I read every day, and I do all my working in. When I made that statement, it was because that's what the community had given me to deal with. But I want to go back for a minute. From 91 to till about 96 or so, I went to Grace Community Church, and I also was in the college department. I really didn't know them as a congregation. I didn't really know MacArthur as a family. When I was in the church, some things happened that I didn't really agree with. I didn't agree with the relationship that the church leaders had with the students. I didn't agree with, doctrinally, he was fine. Doctrinally, I didn't have a problem with the exposition and the teaching. What I had a problem with was with some of the leaders, some of the men. They weren't the top leaders, but they were men who led Bible studies. One of them was, I think his name was Mark Rodriguez. He and I didn't hit it off too well. I'm not exactly sure what was the root of the problem, but he and I didn't do too well. He was the kind of guy that was always poking. He liked to poke. He was always poking me. I didn't like that. I didn't understand the poking. And I sort of felt like he was the kind of guy that in public he wanted nothing to do with you, but in private, he'll be chummy and he'll talk to you. But in public, he didn't want to identify. That was the kind of restraint that was the kind of tension that existed between him and I. It's almost like, and it wasn't just with him, but it was with all of the staff. It's almost like they don't want to know you. They don't want. It's almost like they were covering up something. You know what I mean? They weren't straightforward. It's like something was not right. Something was missing. Something was not exactly as it should be, as a Christian church should be. A lot of things happened. I'm not sure how detailed I should get because they haven't responded yet to the video, and I want to wait to see what their response is. I've been hit a lot by their congregation. I was removed out of the congregation in '99 under the accusation of being a homosexual. Basically, they gave me a 4-page letter saying that I was gay and that I was not to step foot on their property. I was never to return. I was never to have anything to do with them. I was basically removed. So I took it for granted and left. And in '98, I left in '98. But then they kept on coming after me, chasing after me. So I went back in '99 to figure out why are they after me. I spoke to a couple of their pastors, and I was given a 4-page letter and told, you need to go, don't ever come back, don't ever have anything to do with us anymore, because you, Kevin, are homosexual. Now, mind you, I never knew first of all, I didn't know the gay community. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have any connection with that world. And so I'm not exactly sure where they were coming from. What they didn't tell me was that Gabriel Franklin was going to be outside of the church waiting for me. I'm also taping this on a cassette. So when they removed me in '98, so when they removed me in '99, I came up to the Seattle area, and I came up to the Seattle area to continue my Christian life. But it didn't happen that way. MacArthur came out through the community. He never came to me directly and spoke to me face to face. None of the members of the churches ever came to me and spoke to me face to face and made an accusation after I spoke to Kevin Banks, who was the pastor that gave me the 4-page letter. After talking to him, I never saw them again, except for one guy that I saw who was a supervisor to the campus. I think his name was John Ball. I never spoke to him. Not even once did I ever speak to him. I think I might have called out his name once and he ignored me. But that was the only contact that I had with the congregation. But everything else was behind closed doors. MacArthur and Franklin combined forces in Seattle, and they came out. But they came out through the community. I guess this was their way of introducing me to the community. I knew nothing about the community. I knew nothing about homosexuality. I knew that homosexuality was a universal condemnation from God, according to Romans 1:18 through 32, but that was about it. I left Grace confused, not understanding why I was accused, because I wasn't living that way. I was a seminary student trying to graduate to become a pastor. I was a seminary student trying to finish a seminary degree, and for whatever purpose or reason, they wouldn't allow me to graduate. They wouldn't allow me to finish a degree. They wouldn't allow me to keep my job. I was working for the city at the time. And so, confused and bewildered, I left and came up here. As a matter of fact, I went to Arizona. They chased me out of Arizona. I went to Texas. They chased me out of Texas. I went back to New York, spoke to Gabriel and her family. Their family came out, and I don't remember what the course of the conversation was, but I think it was more or less, you're no longer our family, you don't belong here with us, you need to go. So I took it for granted that I was getting hit from both sides of the country. I went from California to New York, and in New York, they came out, and they also told me that the relationship with them was over, so I said, okay. I remember calling Gabriel and telling Gabriel that they were trying to turn me into a fag. That was the community coming out at the time. I didn't understand some of the things that they were doing up here, right? So from the 99, when I moved up here, after running around all over the country, running from this situation, and basically what was I running from? The community, because I didn't know they were coming out. So from 99 until now, they've been out. Grace Community Church and its members have been out through the community. Nothing has been direct. They sit in the background. They're the voices that are on the microphones. They're the people who come in and rearrange my home and rearrange my property. They're the people who sabotage everything. And I think the key to everything that they were doing, or the goal of it was, I walked away thinking the goal of it was for them to get free sex from me and free Christian information. Right? Slavery. This is modern day slavery. This is what modern day slavery looks like. Modern day slavery is exactly what as I was saying, this is what modern slavery looks like. This is what modern slavery is. It's not it's not